wonderful weather, Lady Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
Well, I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into a room, which I've often had to speak to her about.
Lady Fairfax, ever since the day I met you, I have admired you more than any other girl I've ever met in my entire life.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact, and I'd often wish that you'd been more demonstrative in public. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you have no idea how happy you've just made me.
My own Earnest.
But that's not to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Earnest.
Well, I know it is, but suppose it was something else. It's not to say you couldn't love me then.
That's clearly metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, they have very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life.
Gwendolen, to be quite honest with you, I don't much like the name of Earnest. I don't think it fits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Really, Gwendolen, I think there are much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No. There is very little music to the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasures of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. We must get married at once. There is no time to lose.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, yes, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe you are not exactly, indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
May I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen? Will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it. I'm afraid you have very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I have never loved anyone but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite blue. I only hope you'll look at me just like this, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become so, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. Now, I have some questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I make these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolen! Gwendolen, the carriage!
Yes, Mama.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you, you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I have the same list that the Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I feel quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit, I smoke.
I'm pleased to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A good age to be married at. I've always been under the impression that a man who wishes to be married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, however, it produces little to no effect whatsoever. If it did, I fear it would be a danger to the upper classes and probably lead to a fight in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Around 8,000 to 9,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
Investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. With what is expected from one during one's life and what is exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be a pleasure or a profit. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That is all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with land attached to it. 15 acres, but it's not my primary source of income. In fact, only the porters make any use out of it.
A country house. With how many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a home in Belgrave Square, but I let it out yearly to Lady Bloxham. But I could get it back. I would just need 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham. I don't know her.
Yeah. She goes about very little. She's a lady, considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square? The unfashionable side. I suspected there was something. However, that can be easily altered.
Fashion outside.
Oh, if necessary, I presume. What are your policies?
Well, I'm afraid I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both just looks like carelessness. Who is your father? He was evidently a man of wealth. Did he come from what the papers called purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. I said that I lost my parents, but to be quite honest, it would appear like my parents lost me. I remember very little from my birth, and in fact, I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of great disposition and charity, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his back pocket. Worthing is a seaside resort in Sussex.
Where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, in a handbag. A quite large black leather handbag with handles. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom in Victoria Station.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
The right line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you've just told me. To be born in, or at any rate bred, in a handbag seems to me to display contempt for the ordinary family decencies that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. As for the locality in which this handbag was found, a railway station, seems to me to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, then what would you advise me to do, Lady Bracknell? Because I hardly need tell you I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would advise you, Mr. Worthing, to acquire relations of some sort and produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I have no idea how that could be possible. I can produce the handbag at any given moment. It's in my locked room at my home. I believe that should satisfy you.
Me? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought with the utmost care, to marry into a railway station and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.